Jim here. Today, I am going to be assembling, in the end, a power supply, and it's sort of a little bit of a power supply kit, if you will. And I've got all the pieces here, and I thought I'd start pretty much from scratch to show you how the stuff got shipped to me, because I thought, you know, if you're really into this stuff, it might be interesting to know how well the suppliers, vendors, pack these things. So it's a power supply kit. It's there's a Riden control unit that you'll see in a minute, and a case, and then there's the power supply that's used to supply the variable supply. So these things kind of, I purchased the power supply unit separately from the case and power supply controller, let's say. So the power supply is in here. It's from MeanWell. I sort of decided to go a little bit upscale. Rather than buying the power supply that Riden supplies that is capable of a little bit more power, I decided to go for a higher quality power supply from MeanWell. So the MeanWell supply, both of these things came in sort of a plastic overwrap from the shipper. So so all of the padding, in a sense, that's of any meaning is here. So the Riden supply, the MeanWell supply is in here, and kind of see there. And so these were taped together at the ends like that. And then there was just the overwrap. So there's a lot of overwrap there. And of course, getting it out is not too hard. And so there's a pretty much plain brown box here. Not that I'd expect too much more. And you know, the little bit of a window slot here. Oops, kind of slides around in there a little bit, which I guess they can use to see the model number of the supply. So this happens to be an RS-600-48. So that's supposed to produce 600 watts of output power and at 48 volts. Okay, so this is kind of how everything arrived. So the packaging is a little bit crinkled. There's no other packaging in this box, so you can see it there. And so it kind of slides out, and it's a nice compact little unit. And so there you can see, let's hold it up for the details here. So it's a MeanWell supply, the LRS series, 600 meaning, like I said, 600 watts of total output power, and 48 meaning 48 volts. And all the connectors here. And other people have kind of opened these up, so I'm not planning to open it up. Now, one thing to be aware of is that there is a little switch here, so you know, you have to kind of manually control the input voltage. So I'm going to change that over now because I'm not a 230 volt guy. I'm using, we're 120 here, so slide that over. 115 volts is what it says now, so that's good. So anyway, so that's the MeanWell. That's the power supply, and of course it's got a fan there that's supposed to activate if the temperature gets too high on the inner components. And yeah, and so the one thing that that's good, you know, the connections here are pretty straightforward. So we've got 3 connections for positive voltage, 3 connections for the negative voltage, a ground connection, and then the neutral side and the load side being the hot side, or line I should say, not load, line. Okay, put that to the side. So from Riden, what I did is I ordered the case and the controller module, really the real guts of it. And so it was shipped in this big styrofoam container, and it's got this plasticky kind of shrink wrap around most of it. So there was no way that this was going to really come open. I needed to use a knife to open it up. And I sliced it along 3 sides. So it comes in. So very solid packing here. So I'm kind of pretty happy with that. And then the case is here. And so you can see it's S800 case, and there are installation assembly instructions that you can get by going to the URL here, or I guess you can use their QR code, so that make that easy. And I guess as a little bit of a bonus, they sent me a pen. That was nice of them. Can't complain about that. And so before we kind of slice this open, you can see that this is going to be the back. That's where we're going to attach the line. And we can see the control unit box is in the front there. So let's get this out of the way and get into here. So it's all very well shipped or wrapped and packed. I don't like cutting things if I don't have to. It's just me. You know, probably most people would just tear into this. And of course, you wonder why it should matter, because it's not like I'm likely to ship this back, is it? Okay. There we go. So this is come in really great condition. Very good. So there's the lid, nice sheet steel, and there's the control module. So that's the 6012. 60 means maximum of 60 volts output, I think, and the 12 means maximum of 12 amps. And so I thought that's good. I mean, we're not trying to power anything super here. This is intended to be a benchtop power supply. And of course, this video is going to be about, assembling the unit. I can also do another video that I'll link that will test. We'll get the scope on it. It'll test to see kind of the waveform that gets generated by this, especially when the power supply is initially triggered. So that's that. Okay, put that there. And then we have a bag here. A bunch of wires, screws, on-off switches, feet. So I'm not going to go through all of these right now. You'll see all the pieces get used as we do the assembly. So there's that. And of course, just a really quick check here. So these things are supposed to kind of fit together. And that looks like it probably will fit. These things are always deceiving when you're looking at them. In the pictures, the holes all seem to line up. Of course, there's a standard, believe it or not, standard for everything in the world these days. So there's a standard for where the holes on the bottom here are going to be positioned. And certainly some of those yep, line up. I don't know if you can tell, but some of those holes line up just right. So that's fantastic. So that'll make, look kind of like that on the inside when we're done. So that'll be very cool. And of course the controller will fit there. And you can see that nothing got bent in shipping there. And of course there's a cutout here at the back for a fan. So the one thing I'll say is there is no fan supplied, I don't think, in this package. No. So we'll have to see if we have a fan that might be useful in the in one of the junk boxes. Got about 100 fans from various used computers. So there you go. So that's the unboxing, and now we're gonna switch over to the assembly. Okay, I forgot. Before we get into the assembly, we do need to also unbox the Riden power supply. So it's shrink wrapped. I guess it slid around in the unit a little bit, so the corner's a little dinged up. No big deal. Shrink wrap plastic. Okay. Don't need the knife. So here we go. The big reveal. We go from the picture of the unit. Okay. There's some instructions that we're supposed to get before we use it, so we'll make sure to do that. Don't want to blow it up. So that's nicely designed there. A little bit of foam padding. Okay, cut out. There's a cable here, so this looks like it's a temperature sensing cable. Figure out where that goes. There's looks like a surface mount capacitor. There is I think that's the Bluetooth board, since I ordered the model with Bluetooth. There are some crimp terminals. I'm not sure what those are for. And the obligatory package of silica gel. Okay. And then there's the unit itself. Of course, dig around here a little bit. So there's nothing else in the box. It's almost like a magic show, right? The box is empty, see? No magic. And then we can see the back of the unit itself. And everything looks very neat, clean, tidy. Oh, I see, that's not a capacitor, it's a fuse. And that's probably going to go into the slot in the corner there, but we'll double check that after reading. Clearly, I think this is where the Bluetooth, I'll get my fingers out of the way, I'll use my pointer. So Bluetooth is probably going to go here. That makes sense. And then we've got a spot here. It looks like there's a battery that should go in there. We'll have to read some instructions about what kind of battery. This is where we're going to hook up the leads from the power supply to feed the unit. And so it looks like there's there's 4 contacts. It's not really clear if 2 of them are plus and 2 of them are minus. There's some labeling up there, but tells you which side the plus is, but doesn't tell you more there. There's another slot here. So now I'm confused which of the two slots I'm supposed to use. Okay, then there's a plug here. That's where the temperature probe is going to connect. And then we've got some capacitors here, ECD, relay, and that's everything. I'm not planning to take it apart further, but this is the power supply control module. And like I say, everything of interest is going to be on the front here. And yeah, so that's the unit unboxed. So now we can head towards the assembly stage. And I'm not gonna I'm not gonna sort of make you watch me read all the instructions for assembly, but I am gonna go online and make sure I've reviewed all the assembly instructions beforehand so I don't blow anything up. So let's go over, before we get started, all the parts that we're going to use to hook it up. So there were two cables that are going to be used to connect the power supply to the controller panel. Some positive, two for the negative. There's a short little brown cord here, and then there's a green-yellow cord, a brown cord, and a blue cord that are longer, and these are used to connect the mains to the internal switching power supply. And well, we'll find out if they're long enough. The layout of the default Riden power supply that they use in their instructions has the connections in a different location on the other side of the connector set of contacts than the MeanWell. So in the Riden supply, the load and the neutral and ground are located on this side of the board, and in the MeanWell they're over here, as you can see. So we'll see. Worst case, I mean, there's a lot of space internally. Worst case, the wires will run from here to here, and they'll be long enough to make the jump. Anyways, there's an extension cord here. This cord is meant to extend the temperature probe connector that's at the back of the unit here. So there's a temperature probe connector here, and we want to basically take this, and the idea is going to be to run this connector through this extension cord to the back of the case. There are some screws here, so we've got some screws, some with a bit of a pan head, they're flared out, some with a V-shaped head. Figure out what the right names for those different kinds of screws are. They certainly used a lot of little baggies to package everything up. Everything is packaged nicely. I don't know if I mentioned the rocker switch and standard IEC 320 C14 power entrance connector. So that'll just go back in there, and some screws to keep it in place. And some zip ties, of course, to make sure that we've done a neat and tidy job when we hook it up. I've got a CR1220 battery that's going to go into the battery socket when we do the assembly. As I said, we've got our Wi-Fi Bluetooth board here, and then conveniently enough, to make everything a little easier, this piece here comes out. And so since that comes out, we'll be able to, you know, we don't need to kind of have everything and work in a really sort of tight spot, right? We can fasten these cords in here with a lot of working space and then just plug it in afterwards. And that's also important because we can disconnect the mains power supply from the controller board while we're doing all our tuning and adjustment and stuff to get everything ready to go and make sure the voltage is where it should be. Okay. And the other thing is that those fuse connectors that I'm just mentioning, those fuse connectors, the one down here and the one up there, I think those are, there are already fuses in there. I think this is in case a fuse blows, the replacement fuse can be socketed in there. So pretty handy unit, and it looks very nicely done. So happy about that. Okay, so next step is going to be to assemble all of this and get it working. So we'll just take this out of the way for a second while we put the items in here. So the rocker switch goes in pretty easily. We just fit it in there, and all we need to do is press, and so the rocker switch is in there now. Okay, the receptacle connector, it's got a shaped cutout here, so if you look at that, you can see that the shape of the hole and the receptacle match. And of course, because that's something you might be using a lot, pulling in and out, it's got some screw connectors, and it uses these countersunk screws. There's one. There's two. Okay. And then we're going to install the power supply. And of course, ideally, we'd like to get this as close to the back as possible. Actually, before we install the power supply, let's install the temperature extension. So we want that to go there so that it's visible at the back of the board. So it's going to like that, or like that. So you see that there. And so we use these screws. Hold that in place. Oh, I have to go over tighten that. Okay, now that one's in. That one's in. So that's good. Like I said, we want this to go in the case. We need to line up the holes here. All right. Well, where we left off was we were going to mount the power supply into the case, and we found out that the screws that come with the case, which are these, let's see those, that's a little better. Okay, well, focusing is going to be fun. The screws that come with the case are these, well, maybe if I hold it that way. Those are, turns out that those are M3 screws. And it turns out that the MeanWell requires M3.5 screws. Now, I'm sure you can barely tell the difference. Well, the twists and turns never end. So it turns out that M3.5 screws are correct, but they need to also be at least 8 millimeters long. So there you go. The other screws are only 7 millimeters long. Okay, the screws are all in. Had to use a little bit of persuasion to get them in, but the screws are all in. Now we can flip it over, and it's now time to wire things together. First things we're going to do, we're just going to do it a little bit differently than the order suggested in the manual. Okay, we are going to connect the short brown cable here from the set. So we're going to connect in here. It's a rocker switch on that side, and we're going to connect it over here. The shield there. Okay. So now we've connected the short brown cable. So brown is the color for live. So what that's going to mean, let me make sure that that's a little more visible for you. Okay, so we've connected the brown cable here, and so that's taking the live side to the rocker switch, and then we're going to take the long brown cable and the long brown cable here, okay, and that's going to go and it's going to connect over to the live side here. Just make sure that's visible. And power supply. Okay, now, so that just fits, fortunately. Okay, so that's the brown cable, and then we're going to take the long blue cable, and the long blue cable is going to go from the neutral here across to the neutral here. So let's just make that visible again. So we're going to take the blue side, so that's going to go from the neutral there. Okay, so these are European color standards, but not a big deal there. And, as you can see, what we're doing. Just go there. Let's zoom in a little bit. See. Of course, the wires are pretty snug. Like I said, they might have been, they were cut to size. So I might look at finding a different set of wires, but for now, I'll go with that. And then we have to connect the ground wire here. So the ground is the yellow-green. So yellow-green we're going to attach over here. And once again, it's going to come across. You can see the ground connector there. So the only downside is we can't wire this as neatly as we would like to. You can see the wires kind of trailing across. Okay, so that's that part. Now we're first going to connect the red and black to this block, and then we'll connect the wires into the posts there. So the two reds are going to go on this side. You can see I've got one red there. I've kind of inserted it right up to the insulation. Finer Phillips head screwdriver for that. That's one red. Okay, so second red. Okay, I don't seem to. Oh, that's in pretty snugly. No, that's not coming out. So I guess there's enough for it to grip onto. thing is you want to make sure that you're not sticking the insulation in, because it might get a good grip, but you won't get good electrical contact. But once those are fastened down, that's a good grip, so that's not coming out. And so then we need to attach the two blacks. So the blacks are going to go to the V negative here. All right. So two blacks are going to go on that side, two reds on the V positive side. And yes, there are 3 posts, so make sure you pay attention and connect to the proper ones. Okay. Two blacks in. One red. Second red. Okay. So you can see everything is hooked up there. And yes, interestingly enough, the positive and negative cross over. And because, once again, on the Riden power supply, the items are sequenced in the other direction. But we will want, if you can see the contacts in there, the negative is on this side, in negative is on these 2 terminals, and in positive are on these 2 terminals. And so when that sits in like that, everything will be correct. Everything is hooked up. Now before we connect it, before I put the panel in, one of the things that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to make sure that the voltage coming out of here is exactly the voltage that we expect it to be. So first things first, we're going to plug this in. Now I've got this on a switched unit, so I'm just going to turn that off. So that's all connected up. And of course, right now the rocker switch is off. We'll turn the power on there. Okay, good show, nothing's blown up. And turn on the rocker switch now. You can tell the power supply has clicked in. I've got the fluke here in operation. All right, so you can see the display there. Let's put that there. May or may not. You probably can't see that, so put it down. Okay, now you can see that there. So let's test that out. So we've got 48.09 volts. So I'm just going to turn the adjustment here back down. Oh, it's very sensitive. 4801. We'll call that good. Okay. No need to go crazy there. Fantastic. So it's producing 48 volts. And let's just make sure that when we turn it off, takes a while, but yes, it does turn off. Okay. So yep. So it's just bleeding out. All right. So that works. Producing 48 volts. Now magic smoke has come out, so to speak. Now we'll assemble this unit. And so the first thing we're going to want to do is put the, well, if we put this Bluetooth module in first, we won't be able to get the battery in. So first thing we're going to do is put the battery in here. Okay. Like a lot of these things, it's a little finicky. Let's keep popping out. There we go. So that's in now. And then we're going to take the Bluetooth module here. All right. So there's really only one meaningful way that this can go in. The other way would not work at all. All right. Would not work. Will work. So that's plugged in now. Very snug fit. I almost wonder if it should be pressed in further. Well, we'll see if that works. Okay. Now, one of the things that the instruction manual is very definite on is you don't want to kind of be inserting this at any sort of an angle. Turn the main power off. Right, so you don't want to do an angle like that. You want to just put it straight in so everything snaps in properly. And one thing I'll point out is that the wires are quite snug up against the relay there, but it does all fit. So it makes you wonder if the Riden supply that they have, whether that's arranged a little differently. Okay, now you can plug this in. it's connected. Now, we shouldn't forget to connect the temperature probe line. So that's also in there. And now you can try to turn the unit on, see if it all works. So turn on the main. I'll turn on the rocker switch at the back. Okay. That green lights come on. It says Riden power supply. And there we go. Well, I understand that's going to become irritating. But everything works, or it seems to. So the next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to close it up. Seems to work. And we will, that'll be that for this video after I close it up. And then I'll do another video where I kind of test out the functionality of the power supply itself. And so just give you one last look at the wiring there. So I'll give you one last look at the wiring. And you can see that it could be a little bit better. I'd like to be able to sort of route those wires and snug them around. But I'll have to get new wires to do that. Closing the unit up, we're going to use these countersunk screws. There's 8 of them. 1, 2, and then 2 at the front, and then 2 on the other side. So I'm sure you probably don't want to watch me putting all these screws in. Nothing special there. And good news, these screws fit properly. So no struggles there to find the right screws. Okay, there you have it. The feet have been mounted. And so now we got a little bit of a bare patch of the bench. Sits nicely, doesn't slide too much. Perfect. Okay, and there you have it, fully assembled. Got the main panel, screws on the sides, got the rocker switch and the outlet on the back. There's a cutout on the back for another fan, but they don't supply a fan for that. And we can see the temperature probe, mounting point, power supply is fastened in here with 4 screws on the bottom. Doesn't shake loose or anything like that. And so thanks for watching, and please subscribe, and have a look at the follow-on video to this where I'm going to test this out, and we'll see how well it does compared to my other lab power supply. Thanks again.